Morning. It is a beautiful Monday here in Noblesville. It is Monday, the 19th day of May, and I am Mayor Chris Jensen, Mayor of the City of Noblesville. Joining me today on another edition of Mental Health Monday is my good friend, Kristen Boyce, owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling here in Noblesville. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jensen. I'm so happy to be with you on this beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day. And like I said, you actually are at a new spot within your house. You were telling me that you have some family visiting. So it's nice to switch things up a little bit. And great to see you. We're so excited. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, which is something that we should pause to acknowledge, but really it's something we acknowledge every day. And that is what we have been attempting to do really for 5 years, is to not necessarily carve out a month for this, but maybe have you acknowledge it every day as you think about your own mental health. And that is the goal of today, is to carve out a little bit of space, whether you're listening to us live on Facebook or if you're going back. A lot of folks go back and hash through episodes, which we appreciate. Chris and I was just talking this weekend to somebody who just lost their mother. And I said, we've done a whole show on grief and how that looks like. So I was going to send her a link to that grief show. There's something for everybody. So that is what we're trying to accomplish today. But thank you again for joining me this morning for this. And today we're going to tackle, as we tack down the days to the end of school here in Indiana, and we know we have folks across the world that listen, but I imagine most are kind of coming to a close on the school year. We're going to talk a little bit about transitions and what that looks like to transition from kids in school to kids at home. And that may look different for everybody. I imagine it's going to look different for everybody. Kristen, you have some older kids, and so it may not be as choppy of a transition, but you also now have college kids, and that's different. I have younger kids, and so how do we manage their mental health all summer long? How do I not go crazy by having them on iPads all summer and still also hold a job and all those things? So we're going to tackle all those things around that transition, and then also just kind of a very high level mental health conversation, since it is May in Indiana, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. So, but before we do any of that and tackle any of these topics, let's start with some square breathing. Kristen, you'd be proud. Last week I had some students from the Noblesville Boys and Girls Club joined me for a Move with the Mayor event, which was a way to promote nationwide wellness in our community. And before we did burpees and push-ups and sprints, we did square breathing. So I led those students in that. We also had our fire chief and our police chief there. So everyone was square breathing, adults and students alike, before we started that activity. I knew you'd be very proud of that. So
I am so pleased.
yeah, well, why don't you lead us through that exercise?
Okay, so square breathing is something you're going to use during transitions, and it's relevant every day of your life. So if you take nothing else out of our conversation today, I really encourage you to try the square breathing every hour. And it comes in handy when you're stressed or you're highly reactive or you get triggered, you flip your lid to kind of bring you back to center. So there's a purpose in why we want to go back towards the parasympathetic nervous system, and that instead of being activated. So that's why we want to practice, because it's like using a muscle. Like you said with burpees, like we're using a part of our nervous system that we might not have been trained to do. So the more you do it, the more it's going to become automatic. So feet on the floor, we're going to start with that. We're going to ground into the body so we're more present in this moment. We're going to take a big, deep inhale through our nose. We're going to hold for 4. We're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, and slowly release out our mouths for 8. And the longer the exhale, the better. But you can't get a long exhale if you don't take a big, deep breath. So that is the key. So someone will go, and I'm like, well, that wasn't really a breath because we didn't get that deep inhale. You won't get the full benefit of the breath and what we're doing to regulate the nervous system. So really focus on taking that big, deep inhale, that big belly breath, so you can get that nice exhale. So big, deep inhale. Let's do 2 breaths together. Hold and release slowly out your mouth. You'll see I'm kind of pursing my lips. That gives you slower exhale on the breath and a longer exhale. So one more big deep inhale. You can see how I'm getting that big breath, hold, and then slow release. If you don't feel your shoulders drop, you're probably not getting a deep enough breath. So that's a little tell. Like if I can see someone's not really dropping shoulders or loosening up, then you probably need to keep doing more of the breaths. That's an indicator your body's holding a lot of tension and tightness. And typically we're going to hold it right here and in our gut. So it's really important that you kind of notice, am I dropping my shoulders? Am I still up here? Because I'll see clients will come in and they're like this. So we want to know, that's a good indicator.
Yep, we gotta loosen up. Well, it's something that again any age group can do. We try to teach our kids about breathing, and that seems so basic, but it can be in that moment where that lid is flipped can be such a detrimental thing when you can't regulate your breath and get your body calmed down. So that is a huge thing to do, and especially as we go into summer construction season. I will be instituting the breath quite a bit. And I would encourage everyone to do that as well. So, hey, before we transition to transitions, to let you kind of tackle that topic, I want to just remind anybody if you have questions while we're on here today, type them in the chat. If you just want to say hi, that's fine too. We'll be happy to try to answer them on the fly for you. If not, we can try to get some resources to you to follow up with that. So just wanted to offer that up for anybody who is listening live or watching this later on. So, all right, let's talk about transition. I know at the Jensen household, we celebrated that it was the last Monday of the school year today because they're off next Monday for Memorial Day. And they are getting very excited. But I know as parents, Julia Jensen and I are kind of like, oh gosh, here we go. It's a whole new chapter. Routine kind of goes out the window a little bit, which you're probably going to tackle and tell me that it shouldn't go out the window. All sorts of things change in the summertime. I also say too, from my seat, and maybe you can touch on this, it can be hard as a parent if you need to continue your routine and kids may not have that routine. How do you balance that? I remember back in the day when I was getting up at 4:20 to go work out, it was like, oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock. They're still playing outside. I need to go to sleep. That stresses you out. So there's a lot of transitions on both sides of this for parents and for students or grandparents, whatever role you're going to play this summer. There is a something to tackle around this transition. So with that, I'll let you take it from there.
So let's talk about how transitions come with some anxiety, and that's normal. So some people are like, I feel so anxious. Yeah, that's okay. That's normal. So what are you doing with that anxiety? Are you processing it? Are you acknowledging it? Are you stuffing it? Are you numbing it? What are you doing with the anxiety? Here's the other piece that I really encourage every family. I've got several families I work with that have college students coming back home and they've had all the freedom in the world and they're coming back. And then the kids that have different sleep schedules and it can create a lot of anxiety for the parents. Have a sit down where we talk about the summer. What does that look like? What activities you go over? Here's the structure that I encourage people. I'm going to give it to you. And I encourage you to do that if you're just with your partner maybe and you're having a conversation about transitions, or you're with family with kids or grandkids. This is the structure. We're never taught this. So we're not going to go, let's have a meeting, because guess what everyone does? Oh no, we're going to get lectured. We're going to be, preach and teach. We're going to get told all the things that we have to do and all the things that are wrong. Do not do that. What I encourage you to do is at dinner time, we're going to talk about it at dinner. I love, if you want to start it off with something positive, conversation cards. You can buy them on Amazon. Everyone pulls a card, okay? Everyone gets to pull a card. We talk about whatever let's say it says, what was your favorite family vacation? Or what was your favorite, pet? What's your favorite pet? Or what's your favorite animal? It can be anything. Everybody answers the question. So we go around, the person that pulls the card goes first, and then the family gets to, then everyone answers that one question. So this is a way to start it off. Then we're going to say, how's everybody, second part to this, how's everybody feeling? Write this down about the summer. How's everybody feeling about the move? I'm inserting different transitions we have. How's everybody feeling about, and we're talking about summer specifically. Maybe it's how do you feel about, transitioning schools? So some kids are like, they're moving from elementary to middle school to high school, high school to college. Lots of transitions. We need to be acknowledging it. How are you feeling about insert fill in the blank? Okay. Then you're going to hold the space and then you're going to mirror. So if they say, I'm really, excited about the summer, but I'm nervous about going to camp, because I don't have any friends and who am I going to sit with? And you can say, oh, that makes sense. You're really nervous about, kind of excited about summer and nervous about the camp. You see how I say, that makes sense. That can bring up a lot of emotions. I am acknowledging and offering empathy. Then I might say, tell me more about that. Okay. So tell me more about that. I'm giving you structure. And then I might say, let's talk about, this is not just a one and done conversation, by the way. This goes on all summer long. And then let's talk about kind of our schedule for the week. So we go over the schedule. So you have camp, Susie, on, Monday through Friday, you've got horse camp. And, we're going to need to get up and here's the schedule. Here's what we need to prepare ahead of time. Here's what clothing items we need to lay out. Here's our lunches we need to make. Okay, then, Jimmy, here's your schedule. Okay, here's what we need to kind of prepare. Here's what I'm going to need your help with. Here's what I'm helping you with. And then we say, how are we feeling about the schedule? This is where we've got to talk about, here's what's happening this week, and here's the schedule. And then the night before, you're going to go, okay, here's our schedule. Because guess what? Kids like routine. Parents like routine. You said that. It's spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we all thrive in routine. It's when the routine gets changed and transition, majority of the time the routine's getting changed. So we want to acknowledge that this is a different routine. And then we're talking about what maybe we all have to contribute. I don't like, this is your expectation. I like, here's how we can each contribute to how this is going to go smoothly. See, the wording feels different. And so, because we're going to have, empty the dishwasher, we're going to have to do some laundry or clean your bathroom or whatever that looks like. And guess what? Kids aren't going to want to do it. So this is where parents are like, well, isn't there some magic thing where your kid's just going to be like, absolutely, I'm ready to clean the bathroom. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, if you have a really compliant kid, they
Yeah.
may be like, no, not push back.
It'll be the first one we ever found.
It's just, I don't
Yeah.
have those kids, but
Yeah.
some people do, and they're going to not like it. And you have to, as a parent, tolerate by regulating that they may have some attitude about it. And how are you going to react to that? Because this transition brings up a lot of emotions. So number one strategy is you're communicating and you're talking and you're processing. I just gave you kind of a formula to help you, because a lot of us didn't grow up with, how are you feeling about that? That wasn't a thing that most of it, we didn't know how important it was to process the transitions. We just did it. I mean, most of us just did it. And so
Yeah.
we didn't have social media. We didn't have some of these other variables that are now a part of the mix. So we have to move with the times, and
Yeah.
things change.
And what I hear you saying too is that, start this conversation now, to make this a normal part of conversation, so we don't get to next, 2 weeks from now, and it's that first Monday morning and we're like, oh man, you know what I mean?
We're
What's
like, hurry
happening here?
up,
We
we gotta
haven't
get ready
discussed
for
it.
camp. And
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Start laying the groundwork, and then also invite, especially kids, to be a part of that conversation, but not lead that conversation, be a part of that conversation.
Correct. And you are the one facilitating this very important way to connect. So when there are bumps in the road, we have a safe place for them to come and tell us the truth. Like, I hated camp today. It was horrible. I hate it. I'm never going back. Okay. That happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Often. Tell me about that. Sounds like it was really a hard day and you felt a lot of emotions and you really don't want to go back. Tell me more about it. So now, guess what? They can move through it and get to the other side. We can help with resourcing if they want support in that. We might be able to say, here's a transitional object of mine, for example, to take with you. So if you miss me, you can hug your little, or you can rub your little rock that I gave you. So there's many ideas, but what we want to do is hold a safe place during transitions for them to come with their honest, true feelings and be able to have those acknowledged and process them and move through the other side. That's the key during transitions.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's something that I've been trying to work on myself too. Is how do you? I use the term like flush something. Flush something, which again maybe isn't healthy, because I don't want you to flush something you don't want to flush yet, right? I was just talking to third graders about wastewater treatment plants. I have flushing on mine. So yeah, flushing. That kids always get worked up about. They love hearing about that. But what do you what would you not do as a parent? I'm envisioning myself saying like, oh, I'm sure camp's fine. It'll be better tomorrow. Can you talk a little bit like what would not be a healthy interaction on that?
Ooh, this is so good. And
Yeah.
I've made all these mistakes. So
Oh,
if you're like, oh,
like every other day.
I am
Yeah.
not preaching from a place of righteousness or I'm with you because I've done them. That's why. So the first thing is like, it's fine. That's the one you said. That's fine. Feelings inside not expressed. You're basically saying shove that stuff down and move on and pull yourself up by the bootstraps and go. That's a lot of what our parents did. Like, you're good. Come on. This is not that big of a deal. What you're going to do is shut them down and you'll see more acting out behavior. So if they say, well, why are they getting so having a tantrum? Because they didn't process what the feelings were and get it
Stuck.
out, move. It's stuck in the body. It's stuck in the nervous system. So um, don't get so upset over this. Don't cry. I could tell you a million times. If you say don't cry, they're in my office having relational problems because they can't connect to emotions. It's a detriment to relationships to tell someone to stop crying, or you're too much, or you're overreacting, you're too sensitive. This isn't that big of a deal. What's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? Okay, I'm telling you all the things. Yelling and screaming, like, gosh, stop. Like, we can get overwhelmed. Okay. And when we get anxious about being on time, I've had to learn this one the hard way because that's like, hurry, hurry, hurry. You might have
Right.
one that's a little pokey, like, and you're like, can we go? We are going to be late. You got to prepare ahead of time. Like, you got to leave. If your target time is to be there by 7, you're out the door by 7. You're prepared to be out the door by 7:30. So if you're a little late, you're not panicked because that's on us. That's our job to manage the time for the kids. It's not the kids' job. Now, when they get in high school, that's a different story. So it's managing our own emotions and reactivity. My facial expressions, I think I'm all calm and chill. My facial expressions are telling them I'm irritated, I'm mad, and I'm disappointed and upset. So you have to kind of take your deep breaths so you're not getting dysregulated. That's the main thing. So I think the other piece that I think parents can do, we can all do, I think at some point, is we can make it about us. So I can be like, well, when I was your age, I didn't do this, so I'm making it about me and projecting what I grew up with or what I felt or how you're stressing me out, making it about me and what I feel rather than listening first. And later you might say, I feel really sad about that but during it, when we flip it to ourselves, like, look at you are yelling at me. You're being disrespectful. You're da 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 da. Well, we didn't do the first step, which was process first. And so making it about us, this is my number one thing that I have to work on. Because I'd be like, well, your attitude is da da da. I'm missing the point of what is underneath all that. Why are they getting so upset? What is driving the behavior? And typically it's an unmet need. So watch when we switch it to our narrative and projecting what we think that they should feel about something or minimizing or kind of dismissing what they feel, they will then stop coming to you.
Mhm.
It'll start being a fracture in your relationship.
Mhm. So can we touch on? I want to touch on two phases because I do like your conversation around like college students coming home. That transition's different than maybe elementary school students going into summertime. Can we maybe touch on both of those? I don't want to lose track of time here, but I want to make sure that college age conversation is a real one. Transitioning back home, can you maybe? I mean, you have a front row seat to this
I do.
every day right now, so would love to kind of get your take on that.
Yes. And I've been working with several clients on this as it's new for them because they were like, this is a whole different ballgame because in college they had all the freedom in the world.
Mhm.
We don't know what they're doing. I mean, they can be doing whatever they want. So before they come home, usually what I say is, you guys, if they're coming home for a visit or if they're not, we do a FaceTime and we say, how are you feeling about coming home? They have feelings about coming home. Part of them might be excited, part of them might be sad, part of them might not want to come home. Those are all normal feelings. We might have emotions too about them coming home because our routine then changes. And if they have siblings, the siblings routine changes when the sibling comes back from college. So the one thing I always say is let's explore expectations you have for boundaries. So some people are like, we're going to go right back to how the boundary, and I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about where is this coming from within you? Do you have fears that you want to, because you're afraid of something, you're coming hard on a boundary because they're going to push back. They're in the individuation and separation stage of development. They are separating from us, which is healthy, to become their own person in the world. Then they're coming back into the home and they're in a different stage of life. They're kind of making their own decisions. They're learning how to navigate the world on their own. So really watch your boundaries and what that looks like. So, for example, what time do you want them to come home? I mean, that's one that most college age parents are facing. What is the curfew? Why do you have that curfew time? What is it, and talking through it with your teen or your college student, your college kid is super important. Let them talk to you about it. That doesn't mean that you can't, set your boundary and have it, for example, like we have a midnight boundary because she's driving all the way, past certain areas. And I'm like, you know what? Nothing good happens after midnight. So
Mhm.
another parent might have a different time that they're
Yeah.
comfortable with. You have to rumble through what you're comfortable with and why you're setting that
Yeah.
time or boundary.
Do you think the why is an important thing to communicate there? Because I think, I think sometimes we default to, well, it's my house and that's why, and
Oh, that's the
you know,
classic that I
yeah,
hear all
I want to spew that out too. Which again, at the end of the day, it is right. It
it
is
is.
your
That is a
home.
fact.
It is a fact. I imagine young adults need more deeper layer to that onion than we just gave them on that. Correct?
That's right. So, like for
Yeah.
example, with my daughter, I'll say, there are inebriated people sometimes out on the roads, and especially the area you're coming from, that's not safe. It's a safety issue. And nothing really healthy happens too late at night. And I'm worried about driving in the dark and your safety. So we explain, and I say, I get that that might not be what you did in college. And she's like, actually, no, I was in bed by midnight. I'm like, okay, whatever. But another kid might push back on that, right? Well, I
Right.
stayed out till 3 a.m. in college. And you can say, let's talk about that. Let's
Mhm.
talk through this. Let's share how you feel. It doesn't mean that you're going to then not have your boundary. And I love the and in both. Anytime I get into a black and white thinking, they can also have their feelings too.
Mhm.
So we can both have our
Both can be
feelings.
true.
I love a and in both.
Yes.
It is
Yep.
free eating instead of a
Yes.
black and white, right, wrong, good or bad.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, let's talk quickly a little bit about the elementary school age. Maybe elementary school, middle school, high school. Definitely under our roof, under 18.
Mhm.
That looks very different in terms of transitions this summer.
It does because they're going to have a lot of feelings too about transition. Most of them are going to be excited
Mhm.
because it's school's out. Woohoo! Yay! Not all of them. And we need to talk about what that looks like for around the house. What does that look like? Because that's the main thing. Parents are like, well, we got. What about their rooms being clean and them picking up, emptying the dishwasher and etc. So we have to talk through that as a family. That's why those family coming together at dinner is imperative. That's why the research says that families that eat together tend to thrive more so than, and we're all on the go these days.
Right.
I mean, we are. So I don't want to be like, oh, and we're all eating every night together. That would be a sham because of activities.
Right.
During the summer, we can be more intentional about spending time together and connecting and talking about what we need to get done around the house. Like, oh, okay, here's everything in the house that has to happen to function, to operate. Otherwise, we're going to be living in a pigsty.
Hmm.
I mean, so we're talking about how do we divvy up responsibilities? Mom and dad come up with that, or whoever the caregivers are or caregiver comes up with here's what needs to be done, and here's how that's going to work, and here's what's going to need to happen. And you have to assign a time frame, a specific time frame. I feel like, well, just get it done sometime this week. Does not work. It does not work because
Doesn't work
guess
for adults
I'll
that
do
way,
it
does it?
later. I'll do it later. This is
Mhm.
classic for the kids. I'll do it later. And then you're so fuming by the end of it because nothing's gotten done. So
Mhm.
it's really, and I love visuals and I love a good checklist, like check it
Mhm.
off when you're
Mhm.
done. That helps kids. They love,
Mhm.
so if you've got elementary age, do visuals of some sort, like pictures. and then they have their names, and then they have the pictures, and they get to check it off. And then as they get older, you're more or less talking through it with them. Unless they need a visual, then you're still doing that.
Mhm. But I think it comes down to, for me, and especially in the summertime, like that shared responsibility of the home, that everyone has a role to play in it. It's not just all fun and games all summer long. And I think that's one thing that I want to try to be, one of my goals this summer is to make sure that every day everyone has a shared responsibility for our household and making it run the way it works. And in order to have some of the fun things, we have to put responsibility up in front of it.
And then notice when they do it. So this
Hmm.
is the other thing. Lots of kids are words of affirmation, and you
Hmm.
don't need to go over the top, and because then that doesn't feel genuine. But be like,
Right.
that was super helpful that you loaded the dishwasher and you really cared about how you put it in the dishwasher, and then you unloaded it and put them in all the right places. And you got it done by 5 o'clock on Thursday.
Mhm.
That is so awesome. See how I'm like, and it's genuine. I'm pointing out specifically what I'm grateful for. Gratitude in the process and saying it to the person, to your
Yeah.
child, to your partner is essential for transitions.
That's like, again, I was just remember yesterday my son Hank wanted some more iPad time, which is a constant conversation. But I said, I really needed you to put the dishes away. And it was one of the most painful things to watch him put these dishes away because it was just, oh my God. I mean, everything was in the wrong spot. But but we still stuck through it and we did it and we talked about how important that was. And then there was again, a reward on the other side. You can touch on that, whether that's appropriate or not. But, letting him fulfill that responsibility that I asked him to do.
And how did he feel that during the process? Reality, not
It was not a lot of fun, but honestly, it wasn't going to be a lot of fun for me to do it either. So I was trying to actually selfishly lessen something on my plate that he could then do. So
well, because we're running a household with multiple
exactly right.
people with
Exactly.
multiple chores. And I think these days iPad time, technology time is the dangling carrot. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And so we are trying to teach what it looks like to run a house. And we don't want to lecture. We want to say, this really contributes. Thank you so much. Because these dishes have to be put away or they don't get washed. Otherwise, we'd have dishes all over the counter. And sometimes I'm that person that shows a picture of like, this is what it could look like if we don't do the chore.
Yeah.
It works because they see a visual. Now, you don't need to show them a horrific example,
Yeah.
but it helps to say, look at this. This is what it
Yeah.
could look like.
Yeah.
You can find a picture of like dishes everywhere in a
Yeah.
house,
A real situation.
a real situation. Because
Yeah.
then they go, oh, yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah. They don't want to live in that either.
I don't want to live in that either. So,
Yeah.
okay, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
and they're going to have some attitude. This is what
Hmm.
drives parents crazy. It's like, oh, are they going to be selfish and entitled and uncaring if they have this attitude? It's a fear of all of us as parents.
Hmm.
And when we can settle that and go, okay, this is part of that's going to be bumpy, but they're getting it done.
Yep. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be bumpy.
It's going to be bumpy.
The show, it went by way too fast. We're already have to wrap up here. But I love this conversation because it's very, 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 very real. I would just say as we close here in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, I just want to thank you on behalf of everyone, Kristen, for the work that you do and your graciousness to give up your time to come alongside this for 5 years now, that we have tackled this, and we're going to continue doing it because it's incredibly fulfilling for me, and I hope it's fulfilling for you, and I hope it's fulfilling for a lot of people. But can you talk a little bit, maybe one goal that you have for this next year around your work in mental health that you could share?
That we can talk about how we feel and hold space for each other
Mhm.
and tolerate, get out of the black and white thinking and get into the and both. It will change people's lives. Like when you can tolerate two things can be true at once, it's the freedom. So we're acknowledging how we feel, we're processing it, and we're holding space for two truths to be true at the same time. Two feelings can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's my goal is let's keep going with saying this out loud and
Mhm.
talking more. That it's like people like look at me like, oh, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm like, then it's not going to you're not going to get through it. If we
Yeah.
don't work it through, it's going to stay stuck.
Yeah. I love that. I just, Julie Jensen sent me a podcast the other day, and there was a whole section on the truth and how the truth is such a freeing thing, and how it just can make you, when you share your truth, you're not only helping yourself, you're helping so many others too, because there's so many people that go through what we all go through. You're not alone in all this. So
That's
that's a big, we're going to keep telling the truth and just be honest. and love one another
Highest value.
regardless.
Highest value
Yes.
in our family. And
Yeah.
if we can tolerate that, their truth might be, they might say, Mom, you got so dysregulated, and I could get defensive. And I'm like, yeah, that I can see that. That's
Yeah.
true. And I'm so sorry that that hurt you. And I'm going to work on that.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Exactly. Well,
yeah,
Kristen Boyce, yet again, thank you. If someone's in crisis right now on mental health, where do we turn?
988. So if we need 24/7, 7 days a week, my daughter actually just used that with a friend. It is, so if our kids don't know what to do, 988. It's
Yeah.
it's seriously for anybody, any age. It doesn't matter how old you are. It's, you can text or you can call. Their trained clinicians on the other line.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. You are not alone. So, hey, Kristen Boyce, thanks so much. Everyone have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend and a beautiful week. And we'll look forward to being back with you in June for the next edition of Mental Health Monday. But thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Awesome. That went by so fast.